Well, once again, welcome. Thank you for being here to kick off and celebrate National Women's History Month with us. We are so excited that you're here for this webinar, this panel discussion, Women Who Tell Our STEM Stories. This year, National Women's History Month is celebrating women who advocate for equity, diversity, and inclusion. And I'm thrilled to be joined by this fantastic, inspiring panel of women who are doing just that in STEM and beyond. And we will get to know each of them, hear their STEM stories, hear their journeys in just a few minutes. But first, just a couple of logistics. My name is Amanda Sullivan. I'm Senior Program Developer at the National Girls Collaborative Project. I'm so happy you're here with us. You'll also see my colleague Candid Mack in the chat, sharing links, resources, looking at your questions. So feel free to message Candid if you have any issues or need help troubleshooting anything. Thank you, Candid. If you need captions, you can get auto-generated captions. And we ask that you remain on mute, but we would love for you to type away in the chat, letting us know about you, asking any questions that you have for our panelists. And there will be a time for us to ask your audience questions to each of these speakers a little bit later in our hour together, but feel free to put those questions in at any time. So if this is your first time joining us for a National Girls Collaborative Project or NGCP event, welcome. I'm so thrilled that you're here, especially here joining us on Women's History Month. And I just want to let you know a little bit more about who we are and what we do before we kick off this panel discussion. So the vision of the National Girls Collaborative Project is to support and create STEM experiences that are as diverse as the world that we live in. We are a national network of diverse shareholders who are advancing the agenda in gender equity, and we're committed to bringing together organizations that are informing and encouraging girls to consider STEM. Here are our three essential goals. NGCP believes that STEM skills can be acquired by anyone and fostered in everyone. And so all of our initiatives aim to build confidence and create a community of lifelong STEM activators. So we aim to build and sustain our network of advocates and provide equitable and inclusive STEM opportunities. And we work to catalyze equity in STEM from research to practice by providing actionable STEM knowledge that really transforms that STEM experience. And we work on increasing our own collective impact by strengthening our organizational effectiveness. And if you're interested in learning more about who we are and what we do, check out our website. And I think Candid put that link in the chat for you. Here's just a few of the resources that we offer. We offer monthly webinars, sometimes more than one per month. I think we have 3 coming up in April. And we have a variety of topics, including speakers who are educators, researchers, authors, and STEM professionals. And sometimes they're like this, they're conversational panel discussions, and sometimes they're more like a professional development on a certain topic relevant to encouraging girls and youth in STEM. So we really hope you'll sign up and join us for some of our upcoming webinars. And the best way to find out about those events, including our webinars, is with our monthly newsletter. That's where we share national events, resources, research, and more. And you can find more information about all of this, like I mentioned, on our website. That's where we also share blog posts, statistics, and research, and all of that great stuff. So now the reason why we're all here today, I'm just so honestly honored to be here with this group of women in celebration of National Women's History Month and on this theme of women who advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we're here with 4 really inspiring and incredible women, and I'll just say a couple of brief words introducing each of them because I know you probably would prefer to hear directly from them, and we would love to hear their STEM stories directly from them. But we're joined by Dr. Leshell Hatley, an educator, researcher, and entrepreneur who leads Lift Inc., a nonprofit STEAM education and research organization. Safoura Seddighin, an educational technologist, product designer, and educator who co-founded the first educational fab lab in Iran. Dr. Gabriela González, founder and CEO of Safoura Tech Connect, a firm focusing on STEM education strategies and practices. And she's also the former director of the Intel Corporation's STEM Education Research Office. And Dr. Stephanie Hull, the president and CEO of Girls Inc., a national organization that inspires all girls to be strong, smart, and bold. So, welcome to all of you, and thank you all for being here, sharing your time, sharing your stories. And I know that our audience here can't wait to hear from all of you. So, I'd love to just start this panel discussion with each of you taking a few minutes to introduce yourselves. Tell us about your journey, how you came to the work and passions that you're involved with now. And yeah, Leshell, would you like to start us off?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us and coming to hear our stories. I can just start off by saying that throughout my introduction, I'm going to be sharing aspects of my story that I think hold true for anyone who wants to encourage a girl in STEM now. So I'll just be highlighting those particular aspects. But I'll just start from the beginning. Like I've been a computer scientist my whole life, at least since kindergarten, and I have a story to prove it. I'll share that if anybody wants to hear that later. But I was also premature, and I also was diagnosed with dyslexia. So for all of those who feel like you're too small, too tall, too whatever, or you have a learning disability, or your girl or child is going through something like that, that is no barrier to hold you down. But I have been working in computer science for a long time. I think my very first internship was in the 10th grade. My computer science teacher was amazing at teaching me the basic programming language. So I am dating myself with that. That was the most popular programming language. And then that summer, I got a letter that said I should report to Bell Communications Research. Is a precursor to Verizon and precursor to Telcordia. It was back when there was Bell South and Bell West and all of that. This was the research center that kind of controlled that technology. And I was told to report there. And most importantly, in that letter to me was that I was getting a paycheck every 2 weeks. So I was like, I don't know where this opportunity came from, but my mother and myself made sure I was there. And I think that just was a solid foundation from high school into college. Bell Communications later gave me a full scholarship after my first semester at Howard University, majoring in computer systems engineering, gave me a full scholarship, which required
Oh,
return
you're
each month.
muted
Yeah,
just
I
for a second.
hit it by accident, right? So that full scholarship required that I return to Bell Communications Research for internship every summer. And so I had the internship sophomore year, junior year, senior year, and then I was one of those 5-year undergrad students. So I technically have worked at that point, at least for the summers in my mind, for 8 years in corporate America by the time I graduated undergrad. At least that's how I looked at it, right? And so I was like, okay, I think at that point my entrepreneurial spirit came, and also my desire to form a community-based organization, just kind of give back. I think I had grown up in something called SCAP. It was Somerset County After School Program. Very simple name, but it was a very supportive environment for any kid that just wanted to participate. We went on trips, we had homework. And so throughout all of this, the key thing was I had support, and I had an environment at the ready to embrace my interests and to start. I didn't have to go set things up or look for anything. It was kind of laid out and made available to me. And I think that was a strong impetus for my success. 4 degrees later, I have 2 master's degrees, undergraduate degree, and a PhD, all as it relates to something related in the computer science field. And I have 2 companies. I have a for-profit company that is a technology solutions provider, and I have a Uplift, which is what was introduced as a STEAM organization, and they both were founded in 1999. I became a teacher. I am a college professor, or at least I was a college professor for 6 years in computer science. I have products that I've developed. I was the first, my organization is the first to teach teens to create mobile apps back in 2009, 2010. The first mobile phone, the iPhone, came out in 2007. So shortly after that, I created a program to help kids design apps. I think the adults in the world didn't know how to do it very well yet. And so I partnered with Google, went on a world tour of how to teach other organizations to do the same thing in country and out of country. And I got into robotics around the same time, and I've been teaching robotics, mobile app development, game development, programming, all of those things since then. And I think I basically provided the same thing that I felt was a key to my success in terms of just making sure that as soon as someone walks in the door to whatever environment I controlled, that they had access to technology, if that was their interest, to art, if that was their interest, animation. I'm a huge animation fan. And so that is threaded throughout everything that I do, some form of illustration and entertainment. My specialty right now is robotics and artificial intelligence. On the artificial intelligence side, I'm trying to clone myself as an educator, right? I've been educating since grad school, and I'm pretty good at it. And so a lot of people say, Leshell, I need you to come. I need you to come here. I need you to come there. Can you help my kid? You know, I'm tutoring a ton of people even right now. And I thought with this AI thing, like maybe I can just clone myself, right? To try to just spread the joy and the love of computer science, right? I started before the STEM acronym was created. I started before this notion of broadened participation in computer science or in STEM was even an idea, or definitely before it was a named idea. And I think I just had an authentic love for teaching and an authentic love for supporting anyone else who wanted to do the same thing. And that has stuck with me as long as being a computer science nerd. And it continues even now. I've just got off the phone meeting someone to do this as well. So that is my story, and I hope that you all got something out of it to continue the stories of others in your life as well. And I'm open for questions later. Thank you. I don't know if I'm ending there.
Safoura, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Hi.
And thank you, Leshell. That was, I had chills hearing you talk.
My name is Safoura. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm so glad to be here with you guys. So my story started in 1980 when I was born in Iran as the child to two parents who worked in different school settings. I was always expected well in school, and I just did that because I thought that's what I should done. And because of one computer programming course that I had during the high school, I just fell in love with computer engineering and programming, and that's how I ended up doing a bachelor in computer engineering, software design, and I just fell in love since then. I got married and my husband told me, let's go to America. And I was like, yeah, why not? Let's do it. So we moved to the States in 2004. And that's when I realized that, wow, this is all new. It's a new language. It's a new culture. It's a new country. And we were newlyweds. And the first 2 years of my life here was really hard. It took me a lot of energy, a lot of courage to just get over that fear of like getting comfortable with the language, with the culture, just understand what was going on, everything. And because of that, there was this pause in my studies and career, and it was because of my husband's push that I started master's in computer science, although that I was not like feeling ready for it. And that saved me. So I started in computer science. I finished it. I was about to start a PhD. And that's when my husband told me that if you do not know why you're doing a PhD, just stop. And that's because he was suffering through the time he was finishing of his PhD. And and I had a child at the time. So I came across different material, with early childhood education, and I realized that there was this department that was doing work on the intersection of computer science and child development and human development. And I started my master's under Professor Marina Beers, and I developed construction kits, and I was able to actually utilize my knowledge in computer science and engineering and use it towards creating better learning experiences for different audiences. And I started to feel the joy, and I was like, wow, this is all new. I didn't know that, with a computer science background, you could be doing something like that. So the entire field opened up, and I just enjoyed doing it. In 2016, I moved back to Iran, and I co-founded the first educational fab lab / makerspace in Iran that gave more students in an education system that was basically built on one size fits all framework, a better chance at speaking their minds and having more opportunities to learn and getting exposure to more potentials and like opportunities to tell their stories. I came back to the Fab Lab. We developed products, we developed different programs, we went to different schools, we served a K-12 and also college students who needed to work on their rapid prototyping ideas, and basically we tried to cover everybody who was interested. I came back to the States about 2 years ago, 2022, I think. And since then, I've been active again, in a field that I love. And currently, I'm working in an innovation lab with one of the schools at IUSD, Irvine District. And I am very happy to be here, and I'm open to questions. And thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Safoura. I think I'm next. So my name is Gabby González. I want to introduce myself to our participants as hopefully someone that you can relate to. I'm an immigrant from Mexico. I was born in Mexico and brought to the US when I was 13. And I didn't know a word of English at that time. So that was one of the first challenges, was to assimilate into the American culture and learn the language. I am also the product of social welfare. When my family came to the US, that's what we found ourselves in: public housing, food stamps, all sorts of government help in order to survive. And I can share more on that later, but I just want you to know that I grew up in the welfare system, yet that didn't seem to be a element that kept me back, and hopefully it's something that we can let our young people know, that no matter where you come from, you can still accomplish your dreams. I'm also a first-generation college student. I was the first in my family at the time to go to college. And again, that presented its own challenges as well. And I'm also the child of a mother who never gave up. My mom is just an amazing woman. She came to the US with 5 children and not knowing a word of English, and her story is just amazing as well. So I think I inherited a lot of my persistence from my mother and my grandmother. I was also very fortunate, very, very blessed to come across enough people who cared enough to help me stay on track. There were so many opportunities throughout my journey where I could have just derailed into nothing. And there was, again, enough people who, for some reason or another, God knows best, it kept me on track and allowed me to overcome many challenges. So despite all odds, I graduated with a degree in electrical engineering and continued my education through master's and PhD as well. And I have met, just thousands of young women who are experiencing similar growing up experiences in lives and challenges and lack of self-confidence and social capital to help themselves find their way out of that dark tunnel sometimes we find ourselves in. And so I'm 100%, 150% committed today to do everything I can to help them through those tunnels, and help themselves really make it to the brightest lights of their lives. My personal goal today is to provide, hopefully, with my colleagues, a new insight or an idea for all the participants that they might find useful and can share with others in their quest to achieve equitable STEM for everyone everywhere. One of my key sayings lately, and you'll hear more about it, is looks like me, live like me, in terms of how are we purposeful and intentional about identifying those role models that can connect best with the young people we're trying to serve. And so my personal goal for today, again, is that. And basically, I'll just end with, how can we be of service? Thank you. And now, Stephanie.
Thank you. Thank you, Gabby. Thank you, everybody. So my STEM story is different from everybody else's here in that it ends with a PhD in Romance languages, but it also ends with a secret love of science and math. So I come from a family, my father is a brilliant scientist and mathematician. He worked for Raytheon and RCA. He worked on Skylab as an optical systems engineer. So that was always around. It was always part of the family. My sister, who is exactly 1 year older, also brilliant in math and science, terrifyingly bright. And all the teachers I ever had her the year before. So I came sort of through that pathway. But my mom was an English professor. So there was a chance that I might fall off that path. I'm a public school kid. I came from a big town. I do know now that that town had great resources in its teachers and in its curriculum. And there are a few moments, I think, that are part of my STEM journey that I wanted to share with you. First of all, in 3rd grade, we grew pea plants, and then we put aphids on them until the aphids ate through most of the pea plants. And then we put ladybugs on the plants, and the ladybugs ate the aphids. And it was one of the absolute best things you have ever seen as a kid, to watch bugs kill each other. And so I want to say, from that moment on, I have always used ladybugs instead of pesticides. So that also gave me an understanding of climate and alternative strategies. In 8th grade, moving to the 8th grade year, I chewed gum constantly, and it was a particular kind of grape bubble gum, and gum was against every single rule at school. And my science teacher finally grabbed me one day and he said, if you're going to chew gum, you're going to chew gum like a scientist. He made me chew all the gum I had experimentally. So by the time you've chewed through 5 packs of gum to provide research samples, you don't love gum anymore like I used to. He made me find the density of gum. He made me find other properties of chewing gum. He made me find the relative amounts of sugar after chewing it for certain lengths of time. He kept me after school forever. But he said, you know, like, even gum can be good in science class, but don't come back here with gum in your mouth during my science class. In 9th grade, and right the year after that, I was in a different school and I got in trouble for chewing gum in the microbiology lab. But because of what I knew from 8th grade, I was able to tell the teacher confidently that chewing gum wasn't any worse than breathing in the microbiology lab in terms of the content of microbes in your gum, which earned me a big detention. But I was right. And so that was one of the moments where I knew science really could serve you well. Also in 9th grade was the beginning and end of my math career, because geometry was the best kind of math ever. But as many of you who are mathematicians will know, real mathematicians don't love geometry. It's the fake mathematicians who love geometry. So the one time I was about to be brilliant, there was never any good application for that brilliance. I could have done anything in geometry, but they sort of weeded us out of real math with geometry, which I think is sad to this day. 10th grade, I'm almost done with my STEM story, but in 10th grade, I had a chemistry class that I thought was just the best thing ever since 3rd grade. But I had a lot of mishaps, including accidentally creating a toxic cloud that made the school have to be evacuated. I broke a thermometer that had mercury in it, and I was afraid to say anything. So I carried mercury around in my hand all day, which probably explains a lot about the rest of my life. But I didn't know. We didn't know about mercury poisoning, but I probably have it. We did glass blowing in that class. And before the instructions were even given about the molten glass, I had already touched molten glass because it was so beautiful. So I burned all the fingerprints off of my hand. And the last straw in chemistry class was that I broke one of those big ancient kind of decorative containers. It had linseed oil in it with the writing from, the 19th century. They knocked it off the shelf. And because the oil was so old, it had formed this interesting property where the glass shattered and there were shards of glass everywhere. But as the oil moved, it encompassed the glass and it came around to the outside of the glass. And so I said to the teacher, is that a colloid? And that was the last I ever saw of chemistry class. So that next year, I wasn't recommended to take AP Physics. I took AP French and AP Latin, so there wasn't time for science. And I wasn't in any science at all until astronomy freshman year of college. And I very nearly majored in astronomy because it was so amazing. But once again, it was college, freshman year. You had to go to night lab. You couldn't go to parties. So I wasn't fully encouraged. But what I will say about my STEM story is that I had great experiences that I can, as you can see, I remember all of these things like it was yesterday. I had teachers who loved me even when I was really exasperating, and having become an educator, I get it. When I was a kid, I thought, like, it's not that bad. Just evacuate the school. We'll get over it. But they were furious with me all the time. But I was so curious, and I so loved to just touch things and see what happened. And I think every kid should have the benefit of teachers who love what they do too. A teacher who, instead of just yell at you, will make you find the density of gum and the elasticity of gum, and it happens when you drop gum from a ladder, and that kind of thing. They could have just sent me to plain detention because gum was against the rules, but they said there's science everywhere. You ruined my class, I ruined your afternoon. And I loved it. I know all those things to this day. So today, my job really is about making sure that girls in particular from low-income communities and girls of color have a chance to encounter science in ways that are meaningful to them. I realize there's curriculum, I realize there are safety rules, but what stands out for me in science were the times when I found something out that we didn't know we were curious about, something that wasn't provided for me in a kind of a neat answer. And I love the idea of continuing to have things like Fab Labs and places where kids can just see what happens in a safe environment with supportive adults who might have to enforce rules. I mean, you're not allowed to hold mercury in your hand anymore like you used to be when I was a kid. But, those kinds of things I do believe lead people to the curiosity that helps people really discover amazing things and important things about the world. So that is my STEM story.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for sharing your really different, interesting STEM stories. And I said earlier, I had chills, and that's because I really can relate to so many things that each of you said, whether it was barriers that you faced in your own life and with your family, or the support that you had, teachers who inspired you. I can't say I had as many crazy, hilarious science stories as you had, Stephanie, but those are the kinds of moments that I hope kids are having, kids that I work with, or my own kids, because like you mentioned that your curiosity was sparked through all of those. You didn't go into a science career, but that mindset, that curiosity that was fostered by those teachers and by those, as someone called in the chat, hands-on, minds-on experiences that can serve you in any field that you're in. And that's really, I think, a hope that we have when we're encouraging young children to explore STEM and to explore the sciences. So everyone is having a great time hearing from all of you. And if any of you have questions for any of our speakers, go ahead and put them in the chat. We did have one question earlier that came in for you, Leshell, and it was around role models. And I think that was such a great question because many of you mentioned having support, having teachers who, really were pivotal in your lives. And I know at least a couple of you on this panel are role models yourselves, at least in our NGCP run program. So I'm really curious, maybe, I'll throw that to you first, Leshell, since it was directed to you. Did you have any role models that supported you somewhere along your journey? And maybe what makes an effective role model? Why were they effective if you had one?
Sure. So role model, I think, is defined by the person talking about it. So I think for me, my family members obviously were role models because they always did what encouraged or what interests them. When I was an intern specifically, though, even from 10th grade on, we were always assigned a mentor. So someone who worked at Belcourt was my mentor, and they typically, I think I had the same mentor for most of those years. Her name was Deborah Boyd, and she was a Black woman, probably the only woman in her department at the time. And so I was assigned a mentor, but I also was in an internship program with other high school students as well as other undergrad and other grad students. So Belcourt had internships at every phase, and they kind of put us all together usually for just entertainment and conversations like this. And so I automatically had older women, Black women who were either in graduate school or undergrad for math and computer science. And so at the time, no one expressed any challenges or any barriers or anything like that. Everybody seemed to be going through the summer relatively successful. And so I thought that was what happens. I didn't realize that there were any challenges or anything of that nature. And just being around them, hearing their stories in general, hearing their aspirations to what they wanted to do next, regardless of what level of education they were at, that totally just planted a seed for me that this is just what's supposed to happen. And if later in life that didn't, in my case, I sought people who could provide that support in that community for me. And so that happened as well, especially in my own grad program, in terms of pursuing my PhD and after. So, and even now, like I'm around a bunch of women who are absolutely amazing. Some are on this call right now. And so just having that community of support in all, even your peers, I think is crucial.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's true. I think a role model is defined by the person interacting with them and what they look up to and what support they need. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that it's also parents, it's also caregivers. It's not just people in professional roles, but what you said about how you just thought it would be this way, you thought it would be positive because that's the message you received. I mean, that is so salient because kids are receiving messages all around them through the media, through their experiences in the classroom, out of the classroom, and thinking about what is the message we want them to see, what will build their confidence and their interest, and how will really shape how they see themselves, as it seemed to do with you. And then later on, when you did encounter barriers, you had already been strengthened by some of those positive experiences. Thank you so much for sharing that. We have a question for Stephanie relating back to the Women's History Month theme. So this year's Women's History Month is all about diversity, equity, and inclusion. What does that mean to you in the work you do, or maybe more broadly in the work that Girls Inc. does? We'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Girls Inc. has a commitment to equity that really is about the entry of girls into all fields and into all possibilities in the world. So I think one of the things we'd say about equity is that in STEM equity, it's about seeing more girls and women reflected in these professions. And for us, that means giving them as many opportunities as possible and as many resources as possible. Certainly, people are talking a lot about confidence and how you build confidence. And a lot of what Leshell had said is really what we think too, which is that people need to have mentors. They need to have chances to build their skills. They need to understand that the field of STEM might be male dominated, but that there will be a time for them and a place for them. And so early on with the younger girls, what we try to do is to provide a safe space as well as those hands-on experiences that kind of get people curious. We hear all the time from girls that they don't, especially in a room full of mostly men or boys, they don't feel comfortable asking all the questions that they need to ask to really deeply engage. And so this is a place where they can make mistakes and not feel like it's a judgment that girls shouldn't be there or ask questions without having it seem like that's a question a girl would ask. I think we all know that both genders of kids, or all genders of kids, are really curious and they make mistakes, but I think there's something about the way girls learn that makes them especially self-conscious in those situations. So we talk a lot with the kids about having the basic skills early on, making sure that they're literate and STEM literate and they have math literacy early on, or numeracy. Our youngest kids get to do lots of things like exploring the natural habitat. The older girls have a program called Eureka, where it's a continuum. They get to go in middle and high school. They see different STEM subjects in action. They understand how subjects in STEM translate to real world activities. They get to see college campuses. They get to start to think about what that life will look like, what it will feel like to be in an employment situation, to be in a higher ed situation. And, and again, representation really matters. It's important for them, as Gabby said, to see people who look like them in the careers that they are thinking about. Girls don't believe you when you tell them you can do anything. They believe you when you show them somebody who looks like them, who's doing that thing. So we're looking always for partners and sponsors who can help shine a light on careers and pathways and opportunities, so that it's not just those of us who are like family to them telling them, oh no, we've got faith in you. They need to see professionals. They need to see something that's not Girls Inc. that also reflects a world that Girls Inc. is promising them.
Thank you. There's so much to unpack there in terms of the experiences that Girls Inc. is providing to girls, and exactly what you said about you can't just hear it, you need to also see it to believe it. And I'm grateful for all of you here on this call sharing your stories, because this is something that, people working with girls and girl serving organizations will be able to share, and they'll be able to see all of you and your experiences. And I know that those experiences and your journeys haven't always been easy. A lot of you have touched on that in your introductions. And I'm curious if you could share with us, Gabby, you mentioned a few of the barriers that you encountered growing up. What is one particular barrier maybe that you faced either in your own educational journey or later on in your career journey, and how do you think you overcame it? Because I wrote down something you said there were so many points in your life where you could have just derailed, and I relate to that so much in terms of my own upbringing and my own journey. This might be an unfair question, because I'm not sure if I could answer that and pinpoint some reason why I didn't. It was probably a lot of little factors, but I'm wondering if you could tell us about one barrier and how, or did you overcome it?
Well, thanks, Amanda. It's I guess if I can summarize, the barrier was really graduating from college. That at one point seemed like it wasn't going to happen, and that was during my junior year. And I was experiencing a lot of different things. I guess you can say mini obstacles that built up to that larger obstacle of finishing college. Financial, again, is even gotten worse, I think, with time, in terms of how young kids and families can afford a college education is just incredible, now being able to afford a college education. So I worked while I was going to school almost full time. So I was, I had to pay for my own education. I didn't have the privilege of many of my peers whose parents supported them throughout their college years, and they didn't have to have a job while they were focusing on the academics, which again kind of points to the second mini sort of obstacle that got there, which was the academic performance. Because I was working to support myself, pay my bills, get to and from school, to and from work, trying to find enough money to eat, my focus on my academic performance probably could have been better if I didn't have so many things distracting me from it. And so because of that, I often doubted myself. Do I have what it takes to finish? Am I smart enough? Why am I not getting the grades that my peers are getting? I mean, in retrospect, you figure it out, right? Well, I didn't have enough time to study, But I mean, in my junior year, I just, and I tell the story, if people want to hear more about it, is I was in the engineering library studying for a math exam. And I looked at the window and I saw this man raking leaves outside. In Washington during the fall, there's a lot of leaves on the ground. And this man was just raking leaves, whistling. He seemed happy. And I looked at him and I said, why am I breaking my back and my head and struggling so much when I can just go rake leaves with that guy? I don't need money. I know how to be poor. is money really happiness? So you start to really doubt your goals and yourself, and and again, it's like, why am I struggling so much? So I was able to, kick myself back into gear again and say, no, you came to college for a reason, and you're so close. You're so close, you're a year and a half away. So again, I had to figure out how to stop doubting myself. But this is where, people who are around you, who love you and care about you, will help you kind of get back into track. And I think both those financial and academic challenges as I was going through college was probably the biggest barrier, the biggest challenge I had to overcome. And then I also just, to add to that, a professor at the university who I kind of intimately shared that I didn't know if I could pay for the next quarter of schooling. She found a way to share her research grant in a way that she could hire a student to do some work. So that actually helped me out a lot, because outside, beyond my work, being a research assistant to a professor at the university kept me in college, kept me learning about electrical engineering, which is my degree, and committed enough to finish, to see it through. But again, that professor just helped me find a way. I'm just very lucky. So that's kind of one of the biggest challenges I had to face.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure a lot of people here and people listening, watching this recording later on, can really relate to everything that you shared. And, it even makes me reflect on my own life. I remember, hearing you talk about like working through college and graduate school. Early in my grad school career, this memory is just coming back to me as you're sharing your story. I had 2 other jobs outside of being in this MA PhD program, and unrelated to what I was doing. It was like retail and nannying. And someone, gave me some advice, which was, if you're really serious about your work and your research and being here, you need to quit all of your other jobs. This was another student, so a little bit further ahead, who had more family support, let's just say. And that really stuck with me. I remembered like completely doubting myself, like maybe I'm not serious about this. Maybe I should just do one of these other things that are making me happy. And it really took like a professor and someone who really saw me and encouraged me, similar to what you said, to really get me through that. And I think that's a huge barrier for a lot of people. And speaking of those journeys and those things that we wish we had told ourselves, or wish different things had been told to us growing up, I actually had the pleasure in graduate school, some of you might know, of overlapping with Safoura. We had a couple of years together working in educational technology and research. And I don't want to date us or age us, but that was a while ago now. And I'm curious, Safoura, if you have any advice that you would have given your younger self, our younger selves at that time, first getting into this field, or maybe even younger girls, young women of today, what would be that piece of advice? Those, we've heard a lot of the words that we wish we hadn't heard, but what is some, piece of advice you would give?
Yes, thank you, Amanda. That was, some of the best years of my life, working in that lab with you. And I also had my child, at the school, the lab school after department. So it was just such a joy to just watch him running around, and also me running to different classes. So I think, to answer that question, when I think back about the time that I entered the States, not knowing the language, not knowing the culture, just everything, even like everything smelled like it was a new smell. It was a new vibe. It was a new feeling. And it wasn't a pleasant one, everything just felt so distant and weird. And I was, it was hard, those days were really hard. And that 1.5 years after I arrived in that, airport booth, and I realized that I wasn't even able to answer the questions that I was being asked, by the officer, that was hard. And I remember that I was not able to give myself a break. I constantly, questioned myself, and I was trying to figure out why was it that I was not able to get over that feeling real quick, because I was used to always like doing it so fast and being, comfortable with whatever it was that I was doing before, not thinking about the fact that I was in an environment that was familiar, and it was like my comfort zone. I was with my family members, and I didn't even think about the fact that I was all of a sudden all alone in a country that I had no clue about anything about it. And now when I think about it, I realize that I should have given myself a break. I should have just gone, for a while, trying to feel everything, learn everything. And I would say seek help when you need it. Just look around, look for more people. There are always people who could give you support. You just have to look for them. We are all in this together, and there are always great people that you can find. And it's okay to just take a break, sit for a while, just pause, and then it will be okay at the end eventually. So I cannot think of any occasions in my life almost that didn't turn out okay-ish at the end. So now when I look back, I'm like, oh, I stressed so much. I killed myself over so many things that I could have just, given up on, like maybe for a while, and then, come back to. And I think it would be that and then one more thing, just stop blaming yourself and others, and give yourself a break. And the moment that you stop blaming yourself or others for whatever issue, the growth starts to happen, because we kind of get stuck with that process that we freeze everything in time, and we just redo everything over and over. And that comes from the experience of me living in this country. That was the second chapter of my life. So basically, when I think back about it, it just bring back so many memories that are not necessarily pleasant, but I'm glad to share at this point in my life.
Thank you. I mean, I think I could still use that advice today, to give yourself a break, to not blame yourself, not replay these moments over in your head. Certainly an amazing message for our younger selves and younger girls and women today, but probably something all of us could do a little bit more of. And, like you said, there's always people out there to support you and uplift you. And you were such that one of those people for me and in our lab. And you mentioned your son at that time. I know you're a mom to more than one now. Seeing that your career and academic trajectory, I was years away from having kids, but seeing how motherhood was part of your career journey in STEM, that's not something people see or talk about a lot. We talk about, there's stay-at-home moms, there's working moms, and seeing how you navigated both really inspired me and continues to inspire me to this day. We are getting some more questions in the chat. So Megan asked, is there something specific you've seen in your careers that gives you hope for STEM equity? And Gabby already answered in the chat. For her, it's the acknowledgement that our girls and young people are not broken, that the problem isn't the people. Yes, exactly. That's what we've seen through all of the research that's been done. It's not them, it's the institutions, it's the systems, and it's those policies that prevent us from breakthroughs. And that's been acknowledged through research, through empirical means. Is there anything else maybe one of you wants to share, a big change you've seen in your career that gives you hope?
I will jump in with something, which is that I think people are much more willing to talk about the ways in which different children learn, without saying that it's necessarily a bad thing or a deficiency. Thinking about how to engage kids who like to put their hands on things, or how to engage girls, or how to engage boys. I think there was a moment when I think it was more about equality than equity. And the real meaning of equity is to give everybody the right way in so that everybody can achieve their highest potential. And I like that the conversation now is really about equity and not about equality. It's, it might lead to equality. It might lead girls to surpass boys, in science classes. But right now we're really willing to think, girls don't like to be put on their own to do a thing. So give them a group project. And, girls don't like to ask questions if they think they'll be challenged. So put them with other girls and not with boys. And, certain kids don't like to sit still. So don't read the rules to them, for 25 minutes while they, stick their hands in molten glass because they got sick of listening. I mean, that's, there's all different ways, to think about kids where people are really meeting them where they are. And I feel like that's real equity, and that will really make a difference.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree. Seeing that movement and talking about equity versus equality and meeting everyone's individual needs is such a pivotal shift. We're getting more questions. Everyone's so fueled up. I love this. Kayla had a question about, do you know of any specific initiatives or strategies that can be implemented within STEM education and corporate partnerships to address and enhance salary equity for people of color, women, and ensuring their pivotal role in shaping a more inclusive and equitable future? That's a big question. I don't know if anyone has thoughts that they can chime in about that.
Yeah, I mean, my simple thought is just do it. Why do you need a partnership to have pay equity? Just pay everyone the same. Just make the decision and go for it. There's nothing outside of that decision that's gonna make it happen stronger than just the decision to do so.
Yeah, companies need to do better and address it and have pay equity. Yeah, Stephanie, did you want?
I wanted to say +1 on that, and also maybe brag about it if you do it, because then the right people will come to work for you, and the other people will be kind of shamed into meeting you where you are.
Yeah, and I echo everything that's been said and add to it that there's got to be a consequence for not doing it, right? Because people will not do it unless there is a consequence, whether it's for corporations that don't implement this kind of policy. Our young people maybe don't want to go work there, so there's got to be some consequence to that action, because talking about it will not get us there, right? And again, I echo everything that Leshell and Stephanie said, but I wish it was as easy as saying it, right? But actually doing it is the challenge. And again, no government agency, no corporate leader is going to do anything unless there is a consequence that negatively impacts their bottom line.
Yeah, definitely. Well said. And I think this is a nice transition as we're wrapping up. I could completely sit here and chat and listen to your stories for hours. And I'm absolutely floored that we only have a few minutes left together. And I think that was such a great question that was put in the chat, because it's getting to this idea of action. And Women's History Month is a wonderful time to celebrate past women, current women, uplift your voices and hear your stories. And it's also a time to reignite our passion for making a positive change and making a positive impact in the future generations of girls and women. And so I'm curious if any of you want to share a call to action that all of us here who are here for this webinar and watching this recording can do to make some kind of like a positive shift in supporting girls in STEM or supporting girls more broadly. Is there anyone who wants to share a little bit?
I'll just, oops, sorry. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Stephanie and then Gabby.
I put a little tip sheet in the chat. There are 10 things that we have on our resource hub at girlsinc.org that you can do to encourage a girl in STEM. I think some of the best ways, though, are really just expose girls to those careers. Don't assume that girls know what it is to be an engineer. Tell them about what your day is like, because and what you do to help people, and why that work matters. It's not just the title, and certainly not the money or the prestige that really matters to most of these young people. And I love Gabby's story about the leaves. You know, people, they don't even know what your life is like. They really want to do something useful. So tell them what it is, that what you like about it, what's fun about it, what's hard about it, and let them really think about it. And those are the ways I think that you get girls to be interested and see inspiration in the work that's out there.
I was gonna,
Oh,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry, add something that I saw a post by National Girls Collaborative, like posted like for the Women's History Month, about how Ruth Ginsburg said that fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. And I just wanted to add that in order to that, to make that happen, to make others want to join you, you sometimes need to listen to them, because sometimes people want to help, or they have something that they're not sure how to represent. And if you actually listen to them, you can make the way open, and then maybe create some pathways to actually seek help from others who have something to offer, but they're not even aware of it. And that's something that I have been doing in the past, and I think it's been working, at least in my case. And I will be, I will keep doing that for the future.
Yeah, and then I'll go, and then hopefully Leshell can bring us home on this one. I'm very committed to the earlier saying that I said about finding the right role models that young people can relate to. So looking like me is great, you got to see it, but you also have to have lived like me. So I'll give an example. I had a friend of mine who was also Mexican, looked very much like me, but she came from a privileged background. There's no way that I could relate to that. Even if she looked like me, her experience was completely different. And I think this is where intersectionality is so important. You have to look beyond the race and gender. You have to look at their life. You have to look at their socioeconomic status and background. I can't tell you, we had a program in Arizona when I was at Intel, Calermanas, and we intentionally selected role models for our town hall panel that had worked in the field, that had gotten pregnant when they were 14, that got kicked out of school, that had family dysfunctional challenges. They're looking, and again, that's like 90% of the girls, like they're not in a perfect life, right? They have some very personal issues that they're trying to get through, and they can't see past those. I mean, STEM education, forget that. I need to figure out how I'm going to get to the next day. We need to be able to find those role models that can relate to the audiences we're trying to reach across all aspects of their lives, not just along, like I said, these nice and neat boxes. So if there's one thing that I would ask for help and all of us to think about, is as we are out there trying to connect young women to role models, is to think about, okay, what do they need? And I think Safoura said, listen to their needs, and then find the right message, the right voice, the right person who has lived like them, so that when they connect, like I said, that person may look nothing like me, but if they live like me, I'm more inspired to believe in myself. So that's my call of action. Leshell?
No pressure. Thank you. I don't know if I'm gonna wrap it up, but I definitely want to tap into something that I think we all tell children at the earliest that they can understand it, and that is, be the best that you can, be the best human that you can. You're put on this earth with a purpose. Pursue that no matter what. Like Nike said, just do it. And that is, it's a simple 3 words, but it really is, at the face of any obstacle that you think you may have, still answer with just do it. Just do it. Just do it. Whether there are people who look like you, live like you or not, just do it, because ultimately your responsibility is to yourself. And the worst thing you can do is probably let yourself down or think you're letting yourself down. So just just do it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. This was so inspiring. I hope we can all get out there and just do it. I know some of our panelist speakers have to run to another engagement, but I truly want to thank you all for everything that you shared, your journeys, your advice. We're all going to get out there and just do it. Candid put a link to the If Then collection in the chat. So if you're looking for more of those role model resources, virtual role model resources, women with complex, different life stories, STEM journeys, that's a great resource for you to check out. We'll follow up with you all with the links, the recording. If you like the work of the National Girls Collaborative Project, you'll see in the chat a way that you can support us. We hope you'll join us for the next national webinar we have next month. And thank you all. Happy Women's History Month. And thank you again to all of our speakers. Take care.